In this lesson, we will learn how to clean up the transform values of a constrained object. In Level 1, we learned how maintain offset can be used to constrain an object without having it shift because it doesn't match the space of the object we're constraining to. So the right clavicle is a good example of that. So here we see, yes, it has been constrained. However, the downside is sometimes we're left with some very messy values that we'd want to clean up. You can see here by taking a look at the offset values of the orient constraint. All right, this is not good. We want to keep these as clean as possible because if we ever need to tweak our animation directly from the bone after we've baked the skeleton down, well, it's a lot better to work with 0 as our starting point than values that really don't make any sense at all. You'll see that if we were to go ahead and select the right wrist and the left wrist as well, again, we have some very messy values that we'd want to clean up. So we'll go ahead and learn how to take care of issues like that in this lesson. We'll get started with the right clavicle. Now the idea is to create a node that will be matched to the same 3D space as this object. Then we can safely constrain the object to the object that we have matched to it. And what we're left with is, again, very clean transform values because the two spaces are the same, meaning that there'd be no offset at all at that point. And then once we're done, we then want to make sure that that object that was aligned is then attached to the control so we don't lose the control that we currently have. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll work with a locator first. We'll head over to Create. We'll grab a locator. Let's now go to the locator's shape node. In the channel box, we'll go to the local scale channels here. Let's middle mouse button drag and increase its size. That's much easier to work with. Now, very important, we never want to freeze transforms on this locator because we need its world space information to figure out the exact world space of the object that we're trying to clean up. All right, so again, don't freeze transforms on this locator, and eventually we'll go ahead and hide it so animators don't have to deal with that at all. All right, let's go ahead and rename this locator. That's going to be LOC-DRV. This is very similar to the naming convention we use for the joints in our foot roll rig. So that's locator driver underscore R clavicle 01. All right, now we need to figure out how to find the space that this clavicle bone is in. In order to do that, all we need to do is parent this locator to that object. So with the locator selected, let's go ahead and shift select the clavicle bone and press the P key. And take a look. We now have the exact offset that this locator has from the object we've just parented it to, the clavicle. So what that means is if we want this child here, the locator, to be matched to its parent, all we need to do is zero out its transform values. So we'll go ahead and zero out the translate and rotate values. If we were dealing with scale, we'd simply go ahead and set the locator scale to 1 if that was ever changed when we parented to that object. All right, great. So take a look. If we were to go ahead and hide our character, you can see that the locator is now fully matched to that joint object. So we can now go to the joint here. We can get rid of the orient constraint because we'll need to recreate it. So let's go ahead and just grab its name, add it to our name field at the top, and let's go ahead and remove it. Great. Now taking a look at our joint object and the locator, you can see the locator is still parented to our clavicle bone. Now we want to make sure that the locator is unparented because remember the locator is eventually going to control the bone object. So once it's been parented and aligned, we can now go ahead and take the locator and press Shift P to unparent it. Beautiful, and now we have the exact 3D space of our clavicle bone. How cool is that? So from here, we're ready to go in and zero out the rotate values of our clavicle bone. Now you can see here that this is very simple because its rotate X is set to 360. So if we were to set it to 0, it'd be as if there was no change at all because it's already been brought back to that same position. So if we were to go ahead and take a look at our skin, when we zero out this value and our rotate X, again, there's going to be no shifting at all. Right, so here is a very convenient way of making sure that this joint is brought back to a value of 0. Now when we get to the right wrist, that's going to be a slightly different story, but we'll learn how to overcome this. Alright, great. So from here, just go ahead and hide the character again. All we need to do now is go ahead and constrain our clavicle bone to our locator. So watch, let's go ahead and grab the locator. We'll shift select our clavicle bone, and we can now head over to Constrain, Orient Options. We no longer need Maintain Offset, so I'll just go ahead and reset the settings, and we can now choose Add. Take a look, we're now working with 0 values. How exciting is that? Alright, super cool. So how do we get our locator now attached to our control? Well, very simple. We just need to take the locator and parent it to the control object. And now we're left with the same control we had before. And we're also left with a much cleaner joint. Very nice. So again, those locators are golden when it comes to cleaning up our transform values. I'm going to go ahead and now take the locator and hide it because we don't need to see it any longer. So simply go ahead and zero it out. If you ever need to bring it back, you can always go ahead and grab your control, press the down arrow to move down in your hierarchy, and then you can use the left and right directions to move on that same level in that hierarchy. So you'll see we're instantly brought back to our locator, and now we can go ahead and just show it again. Another way, of course, is to use the outliner. You could just go ahead and find that control object in the outliner, just press the F key, go ahead and expand its hierarchy, and again, there's the locator. So we have a few ways we can bring it back very easily. Again, I'll go ahead and zero it out. All right, so that takes care of the clavicle. Now, how about our right wrist? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at a really neat rigging tool that we can use to get this done very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and stop the lesson here, and in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and take a look at how this can be done by working with a really neat tool under the skeleton menu.